So for some quick introductions, I'm surrounded here by a bunch of different light types, and starting with my left, I've got a Speedotron strobe bulb that is used primarily for still photography, well, pretty much exclusively. I've got a halogen bulb here from ARRI. This happens to be a 750 watt version. I've got a Kinoflo 400 here, basic fluorescent tube light panel. Over here, I've got a LitePanel 1x1 LED light. And on the floor down here, we've got an Arriflex. This happens to be an ARRI 1200 HDMI HID light. And last but not least, we've got the Flora from Linco. Fluorescent bulbs are fairly common these days, and you've probably seen one either at the workplace or in your own household. And if you have, you already know that they come in two basic styles and shapes. So we've got the long tube behind me, and I've got the spiral model in front of me. And this is the kind that the shape that you've probably seen in your household bulbs if you've switched to the newer fluorescents to save energy, perhaps, to be a little bit more green or eco-friendly. And this is the tube model that you probably associate more, although this is smaller, that the tubes that you normally see in industrial areas or in the workplace. So you already probably have some idea of what these lights can do for you. You know that they're fairly cool to the touch. You know that they can come on and be turned on fairly quickly and reach their maximum output fairly quickly when it comes to lumens. They're portable, they're lightweight, they're easy to get a hold of. You may not know this, but you probably also know that they last longer. That's one of the selling points that they're touting on the consumer market as well. But what we have here are two photograde models. And so these are bulbs that are you're not going to find at your standard hardware store, but these are designed to give you a very particular color temperature, and that's important. So don't go thinking that you can just go out and find bulbs like this at your standard local department store. These are very specialized bulbs when it comes to the color they're going to produce, and they're also giving you a lot of bang for your buck when it comes to intensity. So let's start here with the Flora model that I've got in front of me. And you can see from this setup here, I've got a light source where I can really aim and control where this output is going to go towards. It tends to be a very soft quality of light, similar to what you get with the LEDs, but the lumen output is far superior. What I'm getting here now, just keeping, again, my light meter in the same basic distance that I have with the other lights, I'm getting in the range of 6,000 lux. And doing that over here was getting me around 2100. So I'm getting a lot greater light output here from this particular light source. Now, when it comes to making a choice between these different types of lights, whether you're going to go with the long tubes or the spiral, you really think about, again, control. This light source allows you to put the light where you want it easier. And also, because of the reflective material around it, allows you to make the most in terms of the luminosity of this particular light source. This lamp behind me is going to spread the light evenly around. It's going to give you a nice fill, but it's harder to control. It's harder to put the light exactly where you need it to go. And another nice feature with this type of light, as with most of the fluorescents you'll find out there, is that you can turn off half of the bank and leave the other part on, so that you only have, if you don't need the full intensity, you can just turn off half the lights and still have the same controllable light source that you had with all the lights on. So I've just cut my intensity down now. Now I'm looking at about 3,000 lumens, more or less. So you have some choices there. It's not focusable in the way that an HID lamp is, but it does give you that option. The lamps are going to last longer than the halogen bulbs, than tungsten bulbs. They're going to be cool, again, to the touch, and you can grab these without a problem. It's a little warmer than you're going to get certainly with an LED lamp, but certainly nothing like the heat generated by the halogen there behind me. Color temperatures are adjustable, so you have a wide range. You can get 3,200 and get 5,600 degrees Kelvin on these. Just depends on what your needs are. They're very lightweight, they're very portable, and they're very energy conscious. Not quite as much as the LED bank, but they do provide that output that we really need in most situations. This light source is great, but in many situations it just doesn't give you enough bang for your buck. It doesn't give you enough light output, enough lumens to really light your subject for most cameras in most situations. This light can still be eco-friendly, still energy conscious, but give you a good strong light output. To my right, I've got a bank of LED lights, and this represents the newest technology when it comes to all these light sources. And what people really love about these lights is that they're extremely lightweight. The heaviest thing here is probably the stand itself. This bank of lights doesn't weigh hardly anything. And as you can see, it's very thin. If I get rid of this little light foot guide here, I can basically get rid of the barn doors here, get a really idea of how thin this light source really is. So these things are great because of their durability as well. These lights will go anywhere between 30 to 50,000 hours of use. When you compare that with like a halogen bulb like this one, which at most is going to be 2,000 hours, you can see how long that really is. A fluorescent bulb like that one is probably going to last you 10 to 15,000 hours of use by comparison. Now, another thing along those lines that people like is that this is going to fade over time. It's not going to just go out on you all of a sudden. So when you get to that 30 to 50,000 hour range, you're going to see that the lights go dim, but they won't just stop working altogether, which means that you can actually still use those lights, although they'll just be dimmer. So when you turn this light source on, you do have a dimmer equipped in the back of most units. I can make this brighter or dimmer, depending on what my needs may be. This particular bank of lights tends to be cool. This is closer to daylight on the cooler side of things and the bluer side of things, but you can get these lights to be warmer if you want them to. You can get a 3200 Kelvin grouping of lights, an oranger grouping of lights if you desire that. So in terms of the Kelvin scale, you've got choices as well. Now they don't have a focus beam. I cannot focus this, at least not with this particular bank of lights. I don't have that technology to do that. And that can be a limitation on most of these that you're going to find out there on the market. They're also very expensive right now. Okay, it's a newer technology. You're going to pay more for this. And as a result, your light output is going to be less. Say your lumen value on something like this is probably going to be along the lines of 2100 by comparison to the other lights out there that we've compared with, which are much higher on average. So in terms of eco-friendliness, this is also a great choice. This thing is the most eco-friendly you're going to get in terms of a light. It uses very little wattage. It's very cool to the touch. I can put this just about anywhere and people will be comfortable with it as far as getting this close to actors, and you're not going to burn anybody. But when it comes to output, that's its real big drawback. It's just not going to give you, at least in its current form, a lot of light output for a lot of bang for your buck, so to speak. You're probably still going to see range lumen output far inferior to its counterparts. But if you don't need a lot of light, or if you're just using it as a fill light source, then it's fine. It's going to do the job. Now you can always get more of these banks of lights, but again, they're very pricey. You're going to pay over $1,000 for a bank of lights like this one. So keep that in mind. It's not the cheapest thing. They are shock resistant, so they can handle vibration. They also stand up well to being turned on and off regularly, and it will not affect the lamps as they would, say, for example, a fluorescent bulb, which is that's doing that constantly is going to damage the light over time and give you less hours. So they're very durable, they're shock resistant, they are cool to the touch. There's a lot of nice things about this type of light. It's just that, again, they don't give you quite the output, and they don't have that ability to focus that some of the other lights do. HID lamps use a different technology than a halogen bulb like this one, and as a result are capable of much greater lumen output. For example, this technology involves tungsten electrodes inside of a gas tube, and it's able to create an incredibly powerful, intense beam of light that's very popular with Hollywood professionals. It can be used to not only emulate sunlight sources, say coming through a window in an interior scene, but it can also be used to supplement or fill light in an outdoor shooting situation, and because it's so bright, it can actually create fills large enough for wide shots or wider shots outdoors where the key source might be the sun itself. So because of its intensity, it has a diverse range of applications that you can use it for, but like the halogen bulb behind me, it's a very hot lamp source because of that technology as well. I'm in this case looking at a 1200 watt version of an HID lamp as opposed to this 750 watt, but they do tend to be heavy and a little bit bulkier than their smaller size counterparts over here, but their power consumption and their lumens to wattage ratio is very good. So because of that technology, they're able to get more bang for their buck, so to speak, and output more light for less wattage. So in that respect, they're a little bit more eco-friendly. But again, these are more designed for people who need intense bright light. Another good thing about these lights is that depending upon the model you get, they can produce a wide range of color temperatures. Now, without getting into the Kelvin scale, just suffice to say this can do a wide range on that scale in terms of producing different colored variations of light, say something towards the oranger side of things at 3200, all the way up to very bluish lights in the daylight range. In this case, the HDMI version, which is designed to emulate daylight at around 5600 Kelvin. But these HID technology is actually capable of going all the way up to 18,000 on the Kelvin scale. So a wide range is possible there. It's a very expensive lamp, I should say, as well. It's designed for professional use, and it's designed for situations that usually involve a very large budget production for the kind of things that this lamp is going to be doing for you. All right, for full disclosure, we've already turned this light on because of this technology with the gas tube. It does take a while for this type of light to reach its full output. So a couple minutes have passed, we've turned this on, and now it's reached its full potential in terms of its lumens. It also takes a while to stabilize in terms of its desired color temperature. So you're going to see, if you measure the color temperature, it's going to fluctuate a little bit at the beginning when you first turn it on, but then it will stabilize according to what it's designed to do. All right, so let's take a look and measure the lux from this. So I'm trying to keep my light meter more or less similar to what we had there with the halogen bulb. And if you remember, that halogen bulb was coming from a 750 watt light source, light housing. This is 1200. Okay, so a little less than double that. And so if we were to think of the numbers, if that's was giving us about 6,000 lux, then this should be about 12,000 or just under 12,000. And what it's giving me here as I read this is 25,000. Okay, so it's giving us significantly more output than the equivalent light source over there would be with the halogen bulb. And again, that's due to the technology. It comes at a price. It's expensive, but you get a lot of bang for your buck with this light source if you're looking for high intensity output. Now, as far as the Kelvin scale goes in color temperature, now that this light has been on for a few minutes, it is stabilized almost to a perfect 5600 degrees Kelvin. So it's a great at giving you exactly what you're looking for when it comes to a particular color temperature on that Kelvin scale. So if we're trying to be outdoors in the sunlight, matching sun perfectly, so to make people feel as though we're actually bouncing sunlight into someone's face or into an area, we can do that with this light and no one's going to notice. Also, if we're trying to make it look like this is actual sunlight streaming through a window of a set or something of that nature, we can make it look like we're outdoors when we're actually indoors. So for that reason, you can see why it's a very popular light in Hollywood when you're, say for example, setting up an indoor shoot on a controlled sound stage, and you're trying to make it look like you're outdoors in the sunlight. Now, strobe lights are probably the most unique when it comes to this setup of lights that we're looking at today, and it's, first and foremost, this is a light you strictly use for still photography for obvious reasons. This strobe light works by attaching itself to a power source like this one, like this big battery pack. And like the HID light over here, it uses arc light technology through a gas bulb to create an extremely bright light source. The difference here is that it's just a burst of light that happens all at once and then it's gone. So much like the little flashes that attach to your cameras for flash photography, this is kind of, think of this as a bigger version of that. It's a large positionable light source like these are. It's a controllable light source. We can aim it where we want to aim it. We can create the same types of lighting effects that we would create with these lights. But the big difference here is that since it's not a continuous light source, it's not on all the time, it's not generating a lot of heat. It's obviously very cool because it's only being used for the split second it needs to be used. And when it's not on, it's just like you see right here, it's cool to the touch. I can pretty much don't have to worry about it, so it's very comfortable to use, especially in situations where it might be hot and uncomfortable for your talent, for your models. So they're going to be a lot happier with you with this light source compared to something like this big HID light or a halogen light bulb. Now, another nice advantage with this type of light is that because it has a battery pack with it, this can be used in situations where you cannot access power. So if you're in a location where you simply don't have any power to use, you can't plug in these types of lights, then this light can still get the job done. So if you're on location and you have no power source, this is the light for you. Okay, well, obviously this technology presents some difficulties and some disadvantages. One is, well, something like this is pretty much useless because you can't measure a burst of light like that with a standard light meter. So you're going to need some trial and error. You're going to need to position these up, take a few snapshots, take a few images as tests, and see what the light's actually going to give you when it comes to intensity and output and how that's going to react against your model or against whatever you're shooting, if you're shooting architecture or what have you. So that also makes it difficult to learn with. If you're new to lighting and you have not had a lot of experience setting up lights and understanding the effects of contrast ratios and different light positions on your models or subjects, it can be difficult to learn that with a light like this because you can't see it happen to the naked eye. You can only see it in the photograph itself. So you have to take the photograph, your camera's in sync with this, the camera, once the shutter button is pressed, it triggers the strobe light, and then you have to go back and look at the results through the camera. In other words, it's not going to do you any good, because it's on for such a short period of time. You're not going to see it happen, and so it doesn't give you an opportunity to make adjustments and learn from it. Where these lights, what you see is what you get when it comes to lighting, and so that makes life a lot easier when you're starting to learn lighting techniques. All right, so now we fired up the battery pack and we're ready to trigger this off, just so you can see an example of what this might look like. Again, to the naked eye, you're just going to see a burst of light, obviously, something similar but brighter to what you'd expect when you see a flash go off on your handheld camera. But to trigger this off, just trigger this, here we go. So the little light tells me when the power has recycled it back into the power source and allows me to trip it again. But you can see the advantage with a system like this. It's going to keep you nice and cool and fresh when you're working on locations that might be warm. But the disadvantage, again, is just that it's difficult to learn from and understand what this is giving you if you don't stop and look at the photographs. Over here, I'm going to start with the halogen light. And this is really similar to a tungsten lamp that you might have seen before, you might be familiar with working with in the past. The advantages of these types of lights is that they're very small, they're lightweight, they're compact, and they come with a bulb that is predetermined in terms of its color temperature. And so your halogen lamp is going to run you 3,000 Kelvin more or less. And so that's usually a constant, and that can be useful for people who are looking for a reliable color temperature source. It's a focusable light source, so I can come back here and adjust this focus control and make that cone of light go nice and tight, or spread it out and go wide with it so I can flood. The bulbs themselves are easier to find and replace than with many other lamps. The bulbs can be purchased at many hardware stores, for example, which would be impossible with these other lamps around me. So that's an advantage. It's also a controllable light source in that you can put barn doors around it and you can do other things to shape the light. But some of the bad things about this light, it's extremely hot. Okay, light is often uncomfortable for actors and people to work around because it's so hot. It can burn you, it can be dangerous. You never want to touch the bulb itself with your bare fingers. The oil on your skin can also damage the bulb and make it wear a shorter lifespan. Now, in addition to the heat generated by this halogen lamp, which is very intense, and just to prove that, I'll turn this on. I know you can't feel it from where you're sitting, but I can feel it, and I can assure you it's very warm being this close. Every light has a lumens value associated with it, and the lumens is really just the measurement of the light output from that particular light source. Now, I'm dealing with a 750 watt light source in this case, this halogen light source. And the lux value that is measured by a light meter like this one in my hand is going to give you an estimate or a value that is associated with the intensity of the light that hits a surface, or the density of the light that's hitting that particular surface. And of course that's going to range, it's going to fluctuate based upon how far away that surface is from the light source, whatever that light source is. But to give you an idea, okay, right now I'm getting readings of about 6,000 lux with the light meter held, roughly 3.5 feet away from the light source. As I move closer, that's going to go up. If I move farther away, that value is going to go down. But dealing with a 750 watt light source, there's now a value that you can start to calculate, a relationship between the wattage and the lumens. And so the lumens to wattage ratio here is not the greatest when it comes to energy consumption. So these aren't the most green lights you're going to find out there. And because of that, they are going to put a drain on the electric bill, of course, but they're also going to be an issue when it comes to overloading circuitry. Let's say you're working at a location that's not designed to handle a lot of power drain, or it's not designed to handle really intense amounts of electricity usage at one time from particular sockets where you're located. And so you may have issues with the circuit breaker in that situation. You may trip the circuit breaker and have all the lights go out on you. So for that reason, that's another strike against this type of light compared to a light source like this HID light on the floor, which uses different technology, different lamps, and is going to give you more lumens output for the wattage that it consumes.